Welcome to a Delco Nerd Network podcast. I am your host, Anthony Ragucci, and this is an episode of Beyond County Lines where we talk to friends beyond the borders of Delaware County, Pennsylvania to hear who they are and what they like to do. Today, I am joined by Jess Scharnagle, writer of Win.gg. Jess,
hello.
How are you? Thank you for coming on.
Good. No problem. My pleasure.
Yeah, it's been we had a mess up in recording. We'll be honest about it. Yeah, and it's funny, like we haven't seen each other since the last the only Fusion live event, and then we would have seen each other probably at the others, but we haven't.
Yeah, so there was supposed to be one in May, and then I don't know when the last one was supposed to be.
I think
August. I think it was supposed to be August.
I don't know. So I know.
No, June. It was supposed to be June because
right.
it was supposed to be Atlantic City.
Yeah, I was gonna say that was the last one I knew about. Yeah, May was at the Met again, and then June was at Atlantic City.
I was supposed to get drunk with a bunch of Overwatch League players. That was what was supposed to happen.
Yeah. And that's what we're here to talk about. Overwatch. So Jess, for those who don't know, who are you? What do you do? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I'm a freelance writer for Win.gg. I cover a wide variety of topics, but mostly Overwatch League. And I cover a little bit of Valorant, cover a little bit of Fortnite, cover some general stuff. I like to talk about video game law, so that's some of the things you'll see me write about.
Yeah, and that's pretty much what we're here to talk about.
Yeah.
There's no intro into it. That is pretty much it. But before we get into that, as a little game I like to play that I was telling you about, we like to this is going to be the 5th episode, but we already know you're the closest to me, as you are literally directly west over the bridge. You're in Audubon?
I used to live in Audubon. I'm in Belmar now.
Belmar.
So even closer. Like literally,
really?
if you throw a stone from my house, you could probably hit the Delaware. That's how close I am. Because if you go over 42, there's not much land left until you hit the Delaware. If you go east.
There we go. Nobody's beating you, because I really don't think anyone else is if you're like in, if you're closer, you're probably coming to my house, but COVID anyway. So
yeah.
I started this show before that, so look at me. So let's talk about Overwatch. Let's get into it. Let's just start, like, how's covering Overwatch been since all this? Because, like, obviously, like, this year for the Overwatch League was gonna be incredible. You know, with all the homestand events, like I remember in season 2 when they announced it, and it was like, oh my god, they're doing it. They are doing it. We're gonna go watch Fusion games in Philly and local areas, but none of that ended up happening. Well, some of it did. Some of it did. But
I think it's really cruel, because I got a taste of what it was like, and then it was ripped away by this stupid...
How many events did you go to? I know you went to you were in DC, right? Yeah. Yeah,
so I went to opening weekend in New York.
Right.
Which was terrifying because I made that trip by myself. And then I went to 2 Washington games in Washington, D.C., and then I went to the Philly one. And I was supposed to go to 4 out of the 5 Washington, D.C. ones and, like, 2 other New York ones, and obviously all of the Philly ones. So I was, when I found out, like, because when they canceled everything, I was like, okay, they're probably going to cancel, like, I don't know, like, April and May, and then, like, we'll see where we get to by June. And, of course, I thought it was going to, like, we all thought it was going to end, like, by then. And I was like, okay, maybe I can still have my birthday thing or whatever. And then, like, as time went on, I was like, okay, I'm not going to have my birthday thing. Maybe, but, whatever, I still have the rest of the year. And then when they came out,
that's what I was hoping for.
Right, I saved up money to, like, there was rumors it was going to be in Vegas, so I was like, let me save up some money. And then they canceled the rest of the season, and I was not prepared for that. I was prepared for a couple months. I was not prepared for the rest of the season. So I was like, I was just so upset.
So did I mean, like, obviously, like, you're not at the events covering well, actually, are you still doing interviews or no?
I am still doing interviews, but the problem with COVID is that And a lot of the times PR likes those interviews to be over text, and of course they do, because they don't want their players saying anything bad, which is
Right.
really easy to do when it's in person. And I've actually done it several times
Oh yeah.
with Stratus. Stratus likes to throw himself under the bus sometimes. But and it was, it was fun. It was jokey. Like, I never did anything that would ruin anybody's career, and I would never
Right.
try
Right.
to do that. But
Right.
it was just funny. They would say, like, he would say little things here and there. Like, Stratus called himself an asshole, and
Yeah.
it
It's
came from a
stupid
question.
shit.
Right, and it came from a question I asked, and then the next week he came back and he turned to his PR person. He goes, "So I don't call myself an asshole this week?" And it's just like those interactions that I really, really miss, and I
Right.
really miss interviewing people.
Yeah, and that I mean, I could like pretty much reciprocate what you just said with like pretty much anything work related. Like that nuance isn't there anymore. Like you kind
Yeah,
of
the personality is like,
it's gone.
yeah, like you can get some personality out of a text interview if you ask the right questions, but when it comes straight through PR and it goes through that,
Funnel.
that right, yeah, it can take some out of it.
So
But I would never know because I can't hear what they're saying.
right. So other than the one-on-one interviews, has it changed the way you're reporting?
Not really. The only thing that it's really changed is the interviews. Sometimes there would be a situation where something would happen at one of the homestands, like, I don't know. I can't think of any examples because nothing did happen, but say like a fan did something, or
Right.
a
Like
player did something with a fan, like I could
right.
report on that,
Right.
and I get paid. I'm one of the few writers that gets paid in this industry. It's really tough. And I, because I'm freelance, I get paid per article. So I would go there and come out with 3 or 4 articles, and now it's like I'm lucky if I get one per entire event. So
Mhm.
because of the way win works and everything. So yeah, it's been tough, but
It,
and
it
and
Go ahead.
go ahead.
No, go ahead. You're talking.
The mental part of it is so difficult because of COVID. Like, when it cancels all of that stuff, it does, I think everybody has dealt with it differently. But for me personally, like, I lost a lot of interest in writing because I couldn't do those things that I wanted to do and that I enjoyed doing as a writer in person. So, like, I didn't write for a good, like, 2 months because I was just like, screw it. I can't do what I love. And I just recently started just being like, hell, I'll just do text interviews and then at least get something.
That I mean, as an Overwatch League fan, I feel like that's been the same for me. I've barely paid attention to the season this year, and like it kills me because it's just like I've watched like some of the games, especially when we first started going over to the they're all everyone's in their rooms and they're casting from their rooms, and it's just like it's not the same at all.
No,
Like
no, it's not.
it's almost like funny how them just being in Burbank where they had the Blizzard Arena and them being there made it so much better. And I think that's maybe why I gravitated towards the Overwatch League in the first place, because like I watched esports before, but like nothing really grabbed me like that did. And I think it's because like the production value of the set and the stage and all that, like the crowd, like there was just a dynamic to it that like had never entered the scene before that I feel like Blizzard and the Overwatch League did. And you just took that all away and it's back to square one, and it's just like, yeah, I don't know if I can like watch this all for the rest
Yeah.
of the year. Like
I mean, it had a special charm, right? So
right.
like esports has never really been that except for large like worlds events or whatever for LOL or whatever. I'm not really big into LOL, but
Right.
they have a bunch of different divisions that have live events,
Yeah.
and that's what people really like because it's the energy is different.
Yeah.
And when you see that energy, even if it's on a screen, and you see that energy, it just brings an element to that production that you don't get with other esports.
Yeah.
So I can see why people might not be watching. Even me, like I cover it, and sometimes I'm like, I'll just pick out the stuff I need and watch it later. Or I'll put it on in the background just to earn my tokens. Like
That's what I've been doing a lot.
yeah, the
Background and like
viewership I think is just gonna be all over for esports right now. Like people thought it was gonna go up, but I actually think it went down.
I was gonna ask, do you know numbers like if you've been in there a lot, like, do you notice like, oh, like I know switching over to YouTube, I feel like hit viewership a little bit, but like I'm not sure if viewership was affected as we went on, and people like me like were just disinterested and just stopped watching. I'm curious if you have that.
I don't know exact numbers. I haven't done anything on it. I know that somebody I work with did something to that effect. It wasn't Overwatch League specific. It was more Blizzard. So they have CS:GO. Is that Blizzard? Which one is Blizzard?
Yes. Well, no.
CS:GO?
CS:GO. No. Call of Duty.
Call of Duty. That's
Yeah,
the one.
'cause of
That's the one.
Activision, right.
COD League.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so like overall, it just went down because of. I mean, you go from Twitch to YouTube. Like YouTube's not really. It wasn't known for its streaming, right? So you have Twitch, which from conception was known for streaming. That's where your people watch things.
Mm-hmm.
And then you put them over to YouTube. It's like, I hated YouTube. I hated Switch. Hated it.
Yeah.
When I reported on it, I was like, I did my first round, and my editor was like, this is too biased. Go do it again. I was like, okay. So I had to redo it because I was way too biased because I hated it. And to this day, I still hate it. And I can't really pinpoint exactly why.
I don't even think you need to say why. It's just because it's Twitch versus YouTube gaming. That's all you got to say, right? Like we all know Twitch is the better streaming platform. I think YouTube even knows that. For God's sake.
Yeah,
like,
that's probably why they wanted it.
Like Dr. Disrespect's over there now. You know, who knows? Maybe he'll change the game. But yeah, I feel like Twitch, like, it just made it better. It's hard to even like really say what it was, but like I maybe it's because we all just use Twitch more, right? And like we're all always on it, and I feel like even if I wasn't watching a game, if the Fusion weren't playing, usually I wasn't watching, but at least I knew it was going on, or I had it up in the background to get tokens. But even now, I'm not even having it up as much in the background to get tokens because I feel like it's so out of the way.
Yeah, and I think a bigger part of it too is that like Twitch had so many good things that just aided the viewer. So you had
the drops.
You have the drops, you have the emotes, you have the extensions. That's one thing I really miss from YouTube is the extension, because it's like, okay, who's playing? And then it's like, all right, now what's the score? And it's like, they don't show the score 24/7 if it's a break or whatever, or they're running an ad, but in that Twitch extension, I could pull it out and see exactly who was playing, what the score was, where they were. And I could also like bet on it. It was like, it's just such a better experience for the viewer.
Yeah, I do you think that's going to change? I mean, I feel like they're locked into a contract because it's Activision.
I think it was 2 years, if I remember correctly, was the contract. Yeah. I think. I wrote the article, but I don't remember.
Yeah, I mean, that was announced like what? Like probably like almost a year
ago.
Before.
It was announced right before they went. Remember,
really?
COD League started like streaming on it like right before, like maybe like a half an hour before they were like, by the way, we're gonna be on YouTube. And that's I think what pissed me off the most is I'm like, wait, what the heck?
I could have sworn we knew. Maybe
no.
I'm remembering that wrong.
Because everybody was like wondering, like, are we gonna go with? I guess everybody just assumed we would go with Twitch, and I remember it was like a half an hour before COD League, which launched maybe a week or so before Overwatch League did, and then they were like, yeah, YouTube gaming. We were like, what? So.
Yeah, it's. I feel like it sucks because I'm really thinking like, how does this affect next year? Are we ever like is the Overwatch League gonna recover from this? Like, are they ever gonna be able to do like what they were trying to do? Because like
that's a question that a lot of people are asking, and I just don't have the answer to. I don't think anybody has the answer to that right now. They're gonna do grand finals online, which sucks. Me and a bunch of other people saved up money for it. So
like, is it just gonna be like another match? Like, how are they gonna do how are they gonna up the production for the finals?
They're not. I mean, that's just a simple answer. They can't. So I don't know exactly what's happening, because I was doing the article about the MVP candidates the other day and what is happening in the postseason, and it says that postseason is going to be postseason, and then it was like, then we're going to give them a couple weeks to figure it out, and they're going to travel to the same location, I guess. I have no idea where that location is going to be. Nothing's been revealed yet, but they were like, we need a couple weeks for logistics to get these players to the same spot, I guess, so that they can be, so it can be fair. And from what I understand, it will still be done online.
Crazy. Nuts. It's absolutely nuts.
It sucks. I've been to both grand finals so far, right? I went to the one in New York.
We both have.
Went to the one in Philly, and I was a journalist for the one in Philly. And oh my god, I loved every second of it. Yeah. Every second of it.
And that is where we first met.
Yeah, I have your picture is hanging on my wall in my bedroom, where I have like a bunch of other pictures of casters and all sorts of different interesting pictures. But I miss it. I miss the live event portion of it so much.
Yeah, I'm curious. Have the casters talked about how they feel about all this, or no?
I haven't heard anything specifically. I've talked to Zoe a couple times behind the scenes, and she hasn't really indicated to me that she's having any issues. I wouldn't air them even if she did. But I don't know. I would imagine it's difficult for everybody because of times and time differences and stuff like that, and having to be at home. And
I think like Bren covering some of like the Asian teams, and I'm just like, dude, like the schedule, that is nuts. Like they're up like literally through the whole night. I'm like, that's crazy.
Yeah, and it comes across too, because you can tell that some of them are in apartments and they're kind of like whispering because their neighbors are gonna call the cops, if they're too loud. They can't
just like scream at like 3 in the morning. Like you'll hear that,
Yeah, because I know Puckett had said something about that. Puckett doesn't do it anymore, but I guess he had.
Is he doing other events?
I think he's doing other events. So he had talked about like, my neighbors are complaining because I'm like screaming at 3 o'clock in the morning. But other than that, I don't really know how it's affecting them. I'm sure it's affecting them just like it's affecting everybody else.
Yeah, it's funny how this podcast is so Corona based, but like it sucks but like it's affecting it so much that it's kind of hard to not talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, we would be talking about something completely different if it weren't.
Right.
I might be like, yeah, this weekend I'm going down to DC to go, do the interviews down there, which, by the way, the DC venue was probably my favorite out of the 3.
Was it? What was the venue?
It was called the Anthem.
Okay.
It was it was beautiful. It was like right on this bay, I guess you'd call it, river bay. I don't know what it was. It was beautiful, and the event, like the thing itself. I mean, the whole place was just gorgeous, and the media section was really nice too.
I'm sure the Met is not that nice. Not as nice.
The Met was like a closet,
that building is old. From what I
it's a really, really, really old building. So like, I was not surprised that we were in a room that was very tiny, that had like a couple tables and a chair.
Yeah. So from what I understand, that venue was renamed. It was something else. It closed for a while. They reopened it and kind of, I guess, redid it a little bit.
It's a gorgeous venue. It's gorgeous. Did you look up at all when you went?
Yes. Yeah.
And they have that big chandelier. Oh, it's so pretty.
It's a very, like, for those who've never been there, it is like a very classical, what would that kind of venue type be? Like, I
mean, it's a concert venue.
Yeah.
Because Chris and I went before Overwatch League even started, and we went to, like, an Andrew McMahon concert there.
I saw Louis C.K. there the week before Corona, actually.
But it's small. It's not, like... it's kind of like the Electric Factory size,
right? But
with seats and, like, think about any small venue you have in your town.
It's got like the orchestra seats, and it kind of goes like straight up and back a little bit. Yeah, that kind of vibe.
Yeah.
And I think that it worked for the most part. They had a lot of technical difficulties, ironically, but I think I totally forgot about that. This is the first time I'm thinking about that in a while. But I feel like it worked out pretty well. Like, I'm not sure what those technical difficulties were. I think one was like a monitor.
Oh God, who was that?
It was
somebody on another team. It wasn't our team.
Yeah.
But there were issues at other venues too. Like, I remember when we went to Washington, I guess they had like, they didn't even pause, I don't think. And Funny Astro, I talked to him about it later, and somebody had pointed it out. There's a colleague of mine who works for GG Recon. His name's Sebastian. I freaking love him. He has the best questions but he noticed it. He was like, "There's something wrong, like, in this map. What was going on?" And he was like, "Oh yeah, my headphones were inverted. So his left ear was his like
right.
his right, and the right ear was his
Whoa.
left. And he played an entire half a map like that before they finally were like, "Oh no, we need to pause this and fix it."
And he's like, "All right, I'm done." I can't do
Yeah, I
it.
was like, "How did you?" I was like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah," and they still won. So I was like, "How did you manage that?" But that
He's
was
good. I
at
like him.
DC. So, but the Met was the Met was probably, it wasn't my least favorite venue. I love the Met. I actually think it's a really great venue. The problem was with the tickets because I had bought two, and this was before like I knew that I would get a pass for media, because at that point we didn't know who was going to be getting in. And I ended up selling my ticket to somebody once I got a media
Yeah, I
pass,
remember
and then
that.
they ended up like splitting the tickets. Like they had this whole ticket issue. No other venue really had an issue. New York was sold out
Yeah.
for the first day.
So once the Fusion got in the season 1 finals, I got tickets because I was like,
Oh, I bought it
fucking
before.
going.
I knew I was
I
going.
fucked up. I fucked up. Yeah, I wasn't like, I'm like, yeah, I don't know, I had no plans. I didn't even think about it. And then like once I saw like, I'm like, oh my god, I was like, we could be in this. And then I like the
And
idea
then they got
started
thumped.
formulating. And then like that night I got tickets. I think off like StubHub. I think I paid like $100 more for them.
They
But
weren't cheap. I think it was like $75 a ticket. I bought them before they even got in, and it
so I
wasn't.
got all the days. I think it was like two. Came around to like
Yeah, it was
260.
2 days. Was it 3 days or two
Yeah,
days? I don't remember.
two, three,
It was
two.
two. It was two because they had one game the first day and two games the second day. I'm
Right.
pretty sure.
Yes.
But
Correct.
I bought them like as soon as they went on sale because I'm a journalist and I want to go.
Right,
But at
yeah.
that point I was like,
You weren't
I
going
wasn't.
because just the Fusion were there. You were gonna go. Regardless.
Right. So like I knew that I wanted to go to experience it because I had never been to a live event and I wanted to see what it was all about.
Yeah.
And when I got there, I was like, wow, this is really awesome and I want to do this as a journalist next year. And then I did. And a lot of the people like I think it was Liz Richardson and Victoria, like a bunch of other people that write for other outlets said the same thing around last year when grand finals was happening. Like last year I came here as a guest and I told myself next year I was going to come here as media, and we all kind of made it, and it was cool to see, everybody kind of made their dream happen. And this year it's like
yeah, so skip ahead to the 2019 season 2 finals. How was that experience? I mean, I saw you and I could tell like you were having so much fun, but you were fucking busy.
I was so busy because I had things that I wanted to get as far as like interviews go and stuff like that. And we actually had a media day. So if people aren't journalists and they're wondering like what a big event like that happens as media, first of all, it wasn't hard to get a pass in. So if you are a journalist who thinks I'm too small for this, or they won't let me in because I only have X amount of viewers, try
Right.
anyway. Because they let in a lot of smaller media outlets. Now, I don't think they would have let in somebody who had like, a WordPress and like, typed up things and got maybe 1,000 clicks on their articles. But if you're like, our website was like just starting when that was coming in. So we launched, God, I was with Win before Win even launched. So we launched, I think, in November of 2018.
Okay.
So we hadn't even been like a year established yet.
Right.
But I got in somehow.
There you go.
And yeah, so we had a media day on Friday. So Friday was media day, there was a day in between, and then Sunday was grand finals. So on media day, they had all of the teams, and I have some pictures, but I guess this can't really like show you them now, but yeah. Podcasts aren't great for visuals.
Describe. But use words.
So they had like two separate rooms, right? So they had the Shock in one room, and they had the Titans in another room, and then they had a bunch of snacks, which was really cool. This was in that new Comcast building. So if you're not familiar with Philly, there are actually two Comcast buildings. There's one called like the Comcast Center or something like that. That's the really, really, really tall one with like the thing on the top, and then there's a new one which is even taller than that, with like the little box on the top. I don't even know how to describe it. It's got like a little box that goes on top of that box. But it's
I know what you're talking about.
this building was so fancy that I didn't know how the elevators worked. It was like next level, next gen type of shit. I had no idea.
Is that the building the Fusion are living in, or is it the older one? Or is it
the
not?
Fusion are living in apartments.
I thought they lived like in a penthouse somewhere, like in a Comcast building.
Possible. I don't know. I've never asked. I know that there are apartments in Center City. It's got to be because
I follow Poco on Instagram, and wherever he is, they're fucking high. They're high.
Yeah, they're really high. But I'm not sure. I know that there's 2 people per apartment. And I know this because when I interviewed Christopher, the coach, he was like, "Yeah, I live with my brother. I live with Chipsa." So the two, they live in 2s. I think Poco lives with Funny Astro.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, Funny Astro and Poco live in the same apartment, and I remember this because I asked. I don't remember what question I asked to get this answer, but Funny Astro was like, "Yeah, I go grocery shopping at Wawa." And for anyone who doesn't know what a Wawa is, because they're mostly on the East Coast, they're like a 7-Eleven but way better. So it's like,
I mean, yeah, you can grocery shop at Wawa.
Does Wawa even sell? Because he told me like I eat eggs, orange juice, and like milk, and I was like,
"That's it?
Does Wawa sell eggs?" Like,
yeah, they do.
Wawa sold eggs by the carton. So I was just like, wait, what? So anyway,
you could get like your essentials at Wawa. Like
yeah.
once you get out of that region, you're pushing it, but you could live off of it.
Oh my god. So anyway, back to grand finals time.
Yeah.
So we had media day on that Friday. Shock in one room, Titans in another. I did not like the way they did it though, because they put 2 players at each table.
Yeah.
So
you were telling me this, I remember.
Yeah. So if you have like a question for Super, so Super and Sinatra sat right next to each other, which is like who most of my questions were for.
Yeah.
Because you've got the local over here who is from Philly, and then you've got like MVP candidate over here. So it's like I had questions for both of them, and I felt like an asshole when I was like, "So Super," and it's like, "You Sinatra, like I have a question for Super." So and I asked Super a lot of questions about the area. So it's like Sinatra's just kind of sitting there twiddling his fingers. Meanwhile, I have a line of like 5 people behind me waiting to interview these people. So that's kind of how it went. You got to interview 2 at once. My impression from that was that Krusty is the most awesome person in the Overwatch League. I love Krusty. He's a great person, and he's really fun to talk to. And then let's see. So then was it after we had our interviews or before? It was before. Before we had our interviews, we got a speech from somebody in Overwatch League. I forget who it was. And then we got to hear from the team's owners. And then they kind of like let us go do what we wanted to do. We also had an opportunity to interview the casters, but they kind of did the same thing. They broke up the casters. At first they were all together. At first, like all of them were in one spot, and it was like impossible to get a question in because you've got the big outlets like Kotaku and like who else is big? I don't even know.
Polygon, IGN.
Polygon, yeah, like Washington Post.
Yeah.
They're all there, and they are all really pushy.
Let me jump into your story real quick. I just don't want to get too far away from it, just in case. Were there a lot of like Philadelphia-based newspapers / sites there? I'm just curious.
No. Not at Media Day.
Okay. Like I'm curious if the Inquirer would cover that.
I didn't really hear a lot of the interviews from Media Day. I heard more from after Grand Finals. So after Grand Finals, everybody, usually the losing team goes first, winning team goes last. So they pull us all into a room. We actually got to go into one of the media rooms at the Wells Fargo Center, which was really cool. As a Flyers fan, like I got to see all this cool memorabilia.
Yeah.
And I would say 99.9% of people there were not from the Philadelphia area and were not Philadelphia outlets.
Interesting. I know the news covered it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you had like journalists that would come for like the start of it, and they would have their interview with whoever. Like a lot of those kinds of people want interviews from fans. they don't really care about the players or anything.
Right, because they don't have
They
any
want to know what
context
fans are
for it.
doing.
Right,
And
yeah.
and they have no idea what they're reporting on.
Right.
They have
Yeah,
no clue what this
that's
is.
a very good point. You know, I feel like something like that, like, I don't know if they sold out.
They did.
Event. Okay, they did.
They did.
So again, that's a big deal for a video game. It, like, just if I just heard video game event sells out, the Wells Fargo Center, and it's just like, what? Like, I gotta know. Like, you know, I
people
feel
are gonna be curious.
Right, just at least curious to see what's going on. But I mean, yeah, the news did cover it. I saw, and my mom actually told me. And they put out like banners on light posts like in the city, and I was like,
yeah, they did.
Wow. I was like, that's really cool.
Yeah, it was a big weekend for me because all of my journalist friends all had to come to me.
Yeah,
it felt great because I'm like, oh man, here's you from. What?
I said all you had to do was drive 20 minutes.
Yeah, well, I didn't even do that. I took the train.
Oh,
so it's like, you know, I went over for media day, and then when we were done media day, it's like, all right, where are we going drinking? You know, like, it's like the journalists were just let loose on Philadelphia. And, you know, you've got, like, Liz, who's from Chicago, and Connor, who was from, I think he's from Texas, and Kate, I don't remember where Kate's from. All of these people from all these different places had to come to Philly, to where I live, to
like, yay.
come cover it. Yeah, and we had a really good time. We just...
It really seems,
know how to party.
It seems like you did, like, just from the, like, what we've talked about in the past, like, it seems like it was just a ball. Like,
I was on top of the world. Like,
yeah, that's awesome.
Because Chris likes it to an extent. Chris likes doing like the live events.
Your husband?
And yeah, my husband.
Yeah.
And after he wasn't my husband at the time. It was a week. That's the thing. Grand Finals was a week before my wedding.
Yeah, I remember that.
A week. And I remember every time I come up to Puckett, when he was at the desk, he would point me out and go, "This girl's getting married next week." And like the whole crowd would go crazy. I'm like, "Can you not?"
What if it was your like wedding weekend? What would you have done?
Well, if it were my wedding weekend, my wedding was on a Saturday, right?
Right.
I would have been at media day. I would have gotten married, and I would have got the grand finals on Sunday.
Oh my god. Oh yeah, 100%. True. It was only one day. I forgot about that. It was
only on Sunday. I mean, obviously, I would have gotten married and I would have missed it. But like, if that had happened, I told this to Chris. I was like, I would have gone to our wedding, and then the next day I would have gone to grand finals. And he's like, I wouldn't expect anything less.
And that's what he made.
Yeah. Well, that made it into our vows because he was like, I'm so proud of you because you chased your dreams and you made it. And I'm like, oh, you're so sweet. We wore Fusion jerseys at our wedding.
I know, I saw.
Yeah. So it was pretty neat. Yeah, we had a Fusion kind of wedding.
And you got
it was just
Zoe and Puckett. Was that it? Who did the little VO?
It was the entire cast.
Oh,
so,
really?
Zoe actually was the one that set it up, and then Puckett did a lot of it, and then I had Bren, Hex, and Sideshow. So Puckett, Bren, Hex, and Sideshow all did some part of it, and they recorded my intro to the reception. Yeah. It's pretty neat.
That's dope.
And I had some people like in my crowd that knew who it was. Like that guy I mentioned that lives in Westchester, he knew what it was. And he was like, "That's really cool." And I was like, "Yeah, I know."
Fuck yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's go back to what we're talking about. Media day, and I don't even know where we left off.
I went all the way through Grand Finals. I mean, Grand Finals was a freaking whirlwind.
Yeah.
You know, like, I wanted pictures. I wanted to make sure I got pieces done. So, like, right as soon as the event was over, like, as soon as that confetti went up, I was running to the back where they were going to take us down to the media room. And I was, like, third seat. I was in the front row and got to ask my questions. I was so nervous. Because, you know, before this, what live event had I done? Right. None! I did 0 live events, so I had no clue what to expect. I had to go in with a question that would be beneficial to me and also beneficial to everybody else in the room. Okay. Because that's what a Scrum style interview is. So a Scrum style interview is where everybody's there, everybody coddles around the people that they're interviewing, and they have their hands out with their recorders, and they're like, "What's the answer to this?" And it's I hate it, but that's the way it is.
Yeah, it's kind of. I imagine it's like you got to be aggressive.
Yeah, you have to be pushy, and
Yeah.
I'm pushy to an extent. I ask my one question that I really, really want to get answered that I can write something around, and then hope that the rest of the people, and we're us freelance journalists, we're a pretty good bunch. We pretty much like kind of share our questions, like, oh, what are you gonna ask, and like, what do you have, and
Right. So you're
you know,
not
we
asking the
try
same questions, and yeah.
exactly.
Right.
You get some stupid ones. We had one.
Yeah. That. Yeah.
We had
That's
one
like at
at
a Comic-Con panel when, like, I don't know.
shout out my mom. You know, like
Chris Hemsworth is doing a panel, and somebody asks him like about the next Avengers movie or Thor movie, and like he can't answer that fucking question. Why would you waste an opportunity like that?
would you like to hear the
Yes.
worst that I
Yeah.
heard?
Oh,
Okay.
go for it.
It was at the one Philly one.
Okay.
I don't know where the hell this guy came from. Okay. When I say they let anyone in, I mean they let anyone in. I don't know where. I think he had his own website. I'm not sure. He goes, and this is Takuki, who is the coach of the Florida Mayhem,
Okay.
who has had his stuff translated but does understand and speak a little bit of English.
Mm-hmm.
He asks, and he asks this of both teams, the Fusion and the Mayhem,
Oh,
and
no.
he's like, I bought the game 2 weeks ago. What tips can you give me to be a better player?
No.
And I'm sitting there like,
no. What?
I was like, bitch.
Really?
I said, everybody in this room
Wait, everyone
knows
just went
how
like,
to play the game.
what?
Yeah, all of us journalists were like,
What?
what?
Why would you?
Yeah. And you know what's funny is that I was talking to Funny Astro. I think I was asking him a question because I was teaching that class I was supposed to teach on journalism. And I was like, what about journalists drives you crazy? He's like, there was that one guy that asked that question about the game itself and like how he can be better. And I was like, I remember that guy. So I guarantee you
what was
the
the
players
answer?
remembered it.
What was the pro answer?
Well, Kooky, Kooky, who was getting his questions translated and answering back in, I'm guessing he speaks Korean. I'm not sure where he's from. He answers in English. Just play the game. I became a Kooky fan after that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he was clearly in the mindset of everyone else. Like, dude, come on.
Yeah.
Like, really?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
that's the question you're gonna ask? Like, come on, man.
There's video of it.
Ugh, that's embarrassing.
And I went back and watched it, because I don't think I was there for that interview, but I heard him say the question to the Fusion. And I went back and watched the Mayhem one.
Who on the Fusion did he ask?
Well, he just gave a general question. I think Poco had answered, and he gave an actual answer, but he's like, Poco,
yeah, play like
I don't think Poco likes the interviews. Yeah. He's like, yeah, just play the game and get better. And
I was like, let me do like
is.
a deep like French accent, like on
Yeah, Poco's really hard to hear in those interviews. I don't think anybody on the team really likes doing them. So you get your people that really like doing them. I don't know. They're just very monotone with their answers, and I don't know. They just kind of seem like they don't want to be there, which I get. After every match, especially when you lose, like the last thing you want to do is answer questions from a bunch of people you don't know, and you don't want to say the wrong thing. And
right.
The people I liked interviewing the most though was the Justice, because Corey and Stratus were like ragtag team. They were fun.
So a kid who's sitting behind us, me and my friend, was Corey's cousin. It was.
Oh yeah, I met Corey's mom.
And we were like, he was like telling us all this stuff when we were talking about it. And I was just like, this is like way too funny.
Here's the thing. So I met Corey's mom.
Okay.
And if you ever noticed Corey, here's the thing.
Nicely.
Me and Mando were sitting like on the side at the first Washington event. And she saw us there, and I had my laptop. I always have my laptop with me to write down like ideas I might have. And she comes up to us and she's like, "Are you guys journalists?" And we're like, "Yeah." And she's like, "I'm Corey's mom." She was so sweet. I loved her. No, I loved her, but she was asking us to explain the game to her because she didn't understand. She's like, "I sent off my kid to California to go play this game, and here he is playing a game that I have no idea what it is." So we were teaching her like how to like tell what was happening in the game. And then she's like, if you ever ask Corey, he's so quiet and he doesn't want to give out much stuff, like he doesn't put anything on Twitter, but I'm the opposite. She's like, so if you ever want an interview, let me know. She was so cute. I loved her.
Day in the life of Corey.
And Stratus's mom is really cool. We met a lot of moms and like siblings and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, most of these guys are 18, 19, 20. Who's the oldest?
They're young. It used to be Fraggy. He was 26. I don't know
Yeah.
who's the oldest now.
Rip.
I don't know. I miss Fraggy.
Miss that guy. Yeah.
I miss Fraggy.
My
He
favorite
gave
tank.
such good interviews. He was so fun to hug too. He was so
the
big.
key to the Fusion's success in season 1, in my opinion, and then in season 2, don't even get me started.
Yeah, I see the one interview I did with Christopher. I had a 20-minute interview with Christopher, which is like unheard of. Like usually they're 5, maybe 10 minutes. I had a 20-minute interview with Christopher where I hounded him about Chipsa and about Sato. I had so many good questions for this man. I felt bad that I kept him, but he was a really good sport about it. And he was my longest interview.
Were they mainly negative, at least towards Sato?
They were criticisms, yeah. Well, he had said like everybody said Sato was bad last year. Yeah. He didn't improve at all, and I was like, didn't improve at all, you say? So like I kind of went into that because that was said at a scrum style interview, and I had a one-on-one with him. And I was like, do you really believe that he didn't improve at all? And he's like, well, I didn't say he didn't improve at all. He worked with Moby Dick over the off season, who is one of their like one-on-one coaches. So he did. He kind of was like, yeah, he improved, and I'm like, I kind of got him to say it because he had said like, no, Sato didn't improve. He was always that good. And I was like, I'm gonna check you there.
Interesting. That's an interesting way to go at it for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm very critical of Sato, so.
I think everybody is, and I think
everybody is.
I think everybody has good reason to. He makes some very questionable decisions, but he stopped. But the difference between Sato with season 2 and season 3 is that Sato stopped making questionable decisions.
Yeah.
I think besides he had like one where he like jumped off jumped into the river and was it Rialto. It was in Rialto. He like jumped into the river.
That was like early in the season, right? I think I remember.
Yeah, really early. And they were like, "Oh, he did it on purpose because it made the team turn around." And I was like, "No, he didn't."
Yeah, I was like, probably not.
No, he didn't. He made those kinds of things happen.
No one charges off by accident or on purpose.
Yes, he just stopped making those questionable decisions, and that's where he really improved. He always had the technical skill. I will say that.
Yeah,
he had the technical skill, but not the game knowledge skill.
I never thought Sato was like trash. I just don't think he synergized with the team well. Like it just showed. And like he always the Fusion is a ballsy team. They've always have been, which is like a Philadelphia kind of trope. So it's funny that they're like that. But I feel like Sato would just do things that and not be ballsy with the rest of the team, but would be ballsy by himself and then screw everything up.
That was the problem, was that he didn't especially when he played Winston, he was heralded as a pretty exceptional Winston player, but he would jump in and then wouldn't know when to jump back out, and he really did improve his game know-how, and I think that's why people are like, oh, he's so good now, and it's like, well, yeah, he never improved. It's like, yes, he did. He didn't improve, skill-wise, but he improved game knowledge-wise.
How do you think the Fusion are doing this year as a whole?
Well, here's the thing, I spoke to Alarm right before it, and he was like, they've always had trouble with Paris, and they've always had trouble
which is
winning
weird, right?
anything
with Paris. It's such a I don't they're not that great of a team, and I'm just like, what the fuck?
They're a good team.
I don't know.
They're a good team.
They're on the edge, I feel, but I feel like we can beat them, and it's just like every time it's like, wow.
Right. Here's the thing, me and Mando, who is another journalist she writes for the Game House, she does some stuff for Paris. She does some admin stuff for them, and the more and more I become a journalist, the more and more I don't have a favorite team. I just
really.
I like to watch the games, but I still have this weird loyalty to the Fusion.
Yeah.
If you pit the Fusion against anybody else, I find myself rooting for Fusion and screaming at my monitor what are you doing? But the more and more I become a journalist, the less and less I have loyalties to the team. However, with the Fusion, I tend to still have my loyalty there. So when Paris and then Philly plays each other, me and her are always kind of going at it. And it's almost become a rivalry now between the two of them. So it's fun to watch. There's always a good match.
Yeah, I felt like that rivalry was, or at least it was, when with the Spitfire. Like even in season 1, and then kind of after, and then it kind of fizzled out.
Here's the thing with that. Like, after season 1, they cleaned house. Like, they literally got rid of the entire team and got a new one. So, like,
Spitfire,
that,
yeah.
Yeah, so
they
that's
went from like the best to like
mediocre. Yeah.
Like, not, I wouldn't
so
say the worst, but
no, I would say mediocre though,
yeah.
like right in the middle of the pack.
Yeah.
But like that kind of got rid of the intent, because when you think of a team and a rivalry, it's like the players play an integral part in that. So when they cleaned house, it's like,
it's
all
not
right,
the same
well,
team. It's just a name at this
yeah,
point.
it's not the same anymore. So now that Paris and Philly are the rival teams, it's always those teams that give a good match, right? So like
Right.
Houston and Philly at one point were a good match, because Houston always gave us a hard time.
I loved like the Outlaw season 1, and then they just kind of they got like worse, and then Jake stepped out, and I loved Jake, and I was just like, damn. And then I feel like they never really got their steam back. I thought in season 2 with Atlanta Reign, especially when Defran was on Atlanta Reign, that was like, holy shit. These games are like that first match, I think, of season 2. That game was neck and neck the entire way, and it was like,
and those are the best.
Wow,
those are the best games.
It was unbelievable. I was like, Atlanta Reign. I was like, I'll see him at the end. Like I was like unbelievably blown away by them.
They had such a cast of characters too. Like,
yeah,
up until recently. First of all, if you ask me who's your least favorite person to write about, Defran is like 1 or 2 on that list. I hate writing about Defran because he's always doing something stupid.
He's a memer. He's for the memes,
He's always doing something stupid, and he drives me crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. I just think he sometimes, like when you're saying like sometimes the players can be a little monotone, he's the exact opposite of that.
Yeah, he's that larger than life personality. And then I think the very last event I went to was Washington, and I was sitting there with the team because they were all for some reason the press area was the cool spot to hang out when the games were done. So like I would walk into the press room, and there'd be like Sideshow doing an interview with somebody. Like he does some kind of personal interview on like his own YouTube, and then like I'd have to tiptoe around him, and then like there'd be Baby Bay like sitting there eating a banana. Like they all stole our food and our water. It's just like literally the first thing I saw when I walked into the media room was Poco coming out, and he literally like just grabbed a banana and started like playing. I'm like, you really gonna steal our food, man? Like, get out of here. I'm sure you have your own food somewhere else. Like we get freaking fruit and cookies. Get out of here.
Get out of here.
But they would just hang out, and I remember the last event I went to in DC, they were pulling the hero pools, and it was so much fun to watch because Baby Bay was standing right there, and he's one of those larger than life personalities too, and he was just so much fun to watch. He's sitting there, he's like, come on, man, and he's like, he was so much fun to watch, and that's what I miss about going to the live events is like watching these personalities, and just seeing it and seeing what the teams are like. And like I remember we interviewed Boston for a while, and Fusions, we got into talking about like what he plays when he's not playing Overwatch, and like him and one of the other journalists got into like a conversation about Smash Brothers, and it was like those kinds of interactions are the interactions that you really love as a journalist, because then you can write about it. Like they're positive interactions that you had that were unintended, but now everybody in the room is now interested in what you're saying, even though you're having a conversation. So like you get to write about that because you had the conversation about it, and it's cool. And you can pull things out of stuff. Like somebody said this, well, let me delve into that. But with a text interview, it's like, you said this, and now I can't send follow-up questions because it's a text interview.
I'm curious. I mean, I know I asked like, I wonder how the casters feel. I wonder how the players feel.
I've had, what?
You're kind of getting robbed of an experience, just like a lot of people have with a lot of different things during this. Like you're like people graduating from college or high school, like you got robbed of a moment. Like graduation's like a thing. You only do it once or twice. Like.
So I had an answer so I asked Alarm like that question, right? So I asked him,
how you feeling, bro?
I said like, how you feel about all this? And he gave me an answer, and Win cut it out. I don't know why, but for some reason we're not allowed to talk about the virus. I said,
Yeah, it's because it's probably like it's just a slippery slope, like sort of like right now, like we just keep
I
talking
guess
about it,
so.
right? Like
Yeah.
not in a negative way, like I don't mind talking about it, but like you know,
So if you want to go by Alarm's answer, I said, you came into Overwatch League in a season that's very different. How has the virus impacted your team and your personal performance? And he said the virus has impacted all Overwatch League teams, including ours. I think the players are struggling a bit since there are fewer things to do for stress relief,
yeah.
especially when you cannot visit home or go outside for activities. Fortunately, my teammates are close to each other. We don't feel as homesick. So that was his answer. I didn't get to put it in the win interview, so
It's a good answer. I like that. Like
it is a good
I feel like
answer.
it's pretty legit, and it's just like honest. Like hey, like I'm friends with my team, so it's not like I don't, it makes the shittiness of the situation a little less shitty.
Yeah, because here's the thing too. Like we would ask that. I actually wanted to write an entire article on burnout, and I think I did eventually. But that's a lot of what my questions revolved around when I was at physical events. I was like, how are you not going to burn out? Because you're traveling, you're practicing 12 hours a day, you're doing this, you're doing that. Like, what do you do for fun? Like
Yeah.
that was a question. Like, what do you
Right.
do for fun?
Right.
And a lot of people said sleep. And
That's
I
such a
think that,
shitty answer, but I
yeah,
like it's
no, but
probably the honest truth.
it hides a lot of things behind it, right? So like if sleep is what you do, like you must be tired. Like you must be tired from doing all of this stuff. Like what do you how do you prevent burnout? And they're like a lot of people did not have a good answer for that. Like I had one person who's just like, I don't know. And it's sad because
And I mean,
how
and
are you supposed to fix it?
these aren't adults either.
Right.
They're I
They're 18, 19. This is their first
right,
experience away from home.
right. Like, how are they supposed to feel? They probably don't really know. I mean, they're.
Right.
It's not like they're probably giving you a bullshit answer to give you a bullshit answer. They probably literally don't know, and they don't know how to answer you because they just don't know.
Yeah, some people would say like, I take breaks, and like some coaches would step in and be like, we take the team out for like fun nights, like we go bowling or we do this or we do that. When I asked the Fusion that question, they said we don't have time for that, which is interesting to me. Some of the players
I
have said
mean,
that they
they're the
go out for dinner.
they're number two, so I get it. I guess, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's what it takes, but I feel bad for the players that, you know, they get burnt out because of it. And I think we've seen a lot of that, especially this season with everything going on.
And I
We've seen
think
a lot of it.
I think if next year continues like this, I think it's going to get even worse.
Yeah, they
I
need to fix
really
it.
hope for everyone's sake that the Overwatch League is somewhat back, and it's just like we were robbed of a year that esports was going to prove something. And
Right.
it's just like, is that opportunity now in the trash, or are we going to get it again when things open up?
That's a question I should probably start asking. Maybe towards the end of this season, towards like maybe after the season, start getting coaches' views on what's going to happen.
Right. Because, I
But
mean, how much of the season do we have left? I know we're nearing it.
not
Or,
much.
yeah.
Not grand finals. Postseason starts September 3rd.
And then
So
when's
I think we have
finals?
like
Do we
I
have a
think we
date?
have 2 more weeks of regular season. There's no date for grand finals. It's not determined yet because they still need to like figure out who the teams are going to be and then how to get them to wherever. I don't know where they're
Yeah,
going.
because I'm looking at like the entirety of the standings so far. I don't think I knew the Shanghai was in first.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
Well, APAC happens when we're sleeping.
True. That might be a reason why I'm totally in the
Hmm.
dark.
Yeah, but I think here's how I think they should fix it, and they've already kind of done it. Because this tournament schedule, like the way they do the tournaments, like every other month is a tournament, and there's like maybe some sporadic games in between. I think that's your fix. That's your fix for player burnout because they have a month, right, where they're grinding, 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 and they get this thing at the end, and it builds a lot of anticipation for viewers because at the end of it, like there's always good games because every time they're funneling down, falling down, falling down until they get like the good teams together.
Mm-hmm.
So if they do that, they have like a month where they're grinding and then like a month where they're a little more lax, and they get to kind of relax a little bit.
Do you like the way they did it this year as opposed to season 1 and 2?
After the virus hit and they started doing the
I mean,
tournament,
yeah, true. I guess it's changed a little bit.
I do like the way they did it. I kind of wish they had done that from the start. I feel like they could do that and have like 2 weeks in one location, 2 weeks in another location, kind of spread that out. and have it so that every location gets one. They were really, really overzealous, I think, with the way they were gonna have it. I mean, they were gonna be in DC 5 times. 5 times.
The way the schedule was, and you know, when we were talking about doing that podcast, we were looking at the schedule, and it was just like, it is really nonstop.
It is.
It was like one thing after another. It's like, how the hell is the Fusion going from like wherever to like across the country in like like a day? I was like, what?
The Fusion had it easy. I forget who it was. I know Paris moved to New Jersey. They're actually in North Jersey right now.
Really? Where were they?
Well, I guess they never planned on being in Paris. They always planned on being in Jersey.
Interesting. Where in Jersey?
They're in North Jersey.
Like, do you know the town?
I have no idea.
I'm genuinely curious. Just because it's relevant to us. It's not like, oh, it's North Dakota. No, it's Jersey. They're over there.
I think they're probably in the Brunswick area. It's probably the best platform.
Huh,
but
interesting. That's cool.
That way, so their schedule had them in DC and New York a lot. It actually made more sense for them to be in South Jersey because they were in DC more than they were in New York. So I don't know why they picked North Jersey, but that's just what teams had to do in order to like make it easier on the players.
Yeah. I'm excited to watch the playoffs, but it just sucks it's not going to be hype as hell like it usually is.
Here's the thing. I think Fusion's going to make it.
Yeah, I think they are going to too. And we get robbed!
Every time. I could, like, they went up against a Shock, and I was like, listen, they beat Paris. They're on a roll. They didn't play Carpe this weekend. They played Hisu. So finally, I can shut people up that say, oh, they're only the team because of Carpe. Like, no, they're not. Carpe's not the only person on the team. But
he's Weapon X over here. He's the X Factor, but the team is also very good.
Yeah.
So
the whole team.
So about the finals, where did you hear that it was going to be in Vegas?
I heard it from another journalist
who heard it through the grapevine. Because that's interesting.
I don't know where they heard it.
Because
all I know
is
that they said they heard it was going to be in Vegas, and it made sense. But it also kind of hid something bigger because they were like, well, when you have an event in Vegas like that, and you have it at a casino, where it was probably going to be in a casino, what else is there?
Right.
Yeah. When you do that,
that would have been cool.
You don't have to actually pay for the venue because they make so much money off of the tickets and off of the hotel rooms and off of the people that gamble that they don't they don't charge you to actually have the event there. So they were like, think of what other teams own or what owners of the other teams have, right? So you've got, I think Texas, they have one. Then you've got, I think Vancouver has one, like an esports arena, but they're all too small, right? So like, then you go to those teams that are in the big cities like Los Angeles and Philadelphia, Massachusetts, Boston, and those places. Boston, they're not going to have it there. Their team sucks. And, but it's like, where can you have this thing at a large venue? I mean, they sold out Wells Fargo, which is a large venue.
So were the Barclays Center and Wells Fargo Center not good enough, do you think? Like, did they need to go
I don't
bigger?
think they wanted to have it there again.
I couldn't see. So what I thought, and maybe this is just how it ended up. So Barclays, whatever. They just picked the Barclays because New York.
Right.
And then Fusion versus Spitfire. So I'm like, maybe it's going to be in London. Probably not because EU. Or Philly because we were in it. And then I was like, Philly. I was like, oh, fuck. Like, that's awesome. So then this year I'm like, is it going to be in San Francisco? Or is it going to be in Vancouver? Like,
I thought it was going to be somewhere outside of the United States.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know where it's going to be, but I don't think it's going to be in the U.S. I think it's going to be, if I were to guess, I thought it would be in Korea. Right? Because that
would have been crazy.
That just makes a whole lot of sense, right?
Yeah.
They can fill like an entire Olympic arena in Korea.
Right.
So if you want to make your money, that's where you put it, right? Mm-hmm. So that's what I thought, and I'm like, there's no way in hell I'm getting to Korea. There's just no way.
That's not happening. Yeah.
But I saved up just in case they had it in Las Vegas, which I didn't think was. I'm not sure how substantiated that rumor was. But in case they had it somewhere in the United States or in Canada or like somewhere I could easily get to, I was like, I want to have the money saved up, and now, now it's being spent on kitchen cabinets. So.
Such a shame.
It sucks. It sucks. It really does.
So we'll kind of wrap up here, but I feel like you asked me this question the last time we brought it up. What's going on with the Fusion Arena?
That's a good question. I haven't heard anything since.
I mean, COVID probably construction. You know.
Have you been by it at all?
I've been into Philly once since March. You know, ironically, I was in Philly the weekend sports shut down. I was in. Do you ever hear the bar Misconduct in Center City?
I've heard of it.
Okay, I was in Misconduct, a sports bar, on a Friday night with 12 people in it with no sports on. That will never happen again, ever.
Wow.
It was like, holy shit. Like I'd planned to go out with coworkers, so we kept them. So, and everything was just starting to shut down. Like it wasn't bad yet. I mean, it was bad, but we didn't know it was going to be bad.
Right.
And,
yeah.
And the
I
city
remember.
was dead, and that was the last time I was in the city. And then I went there again recently because my friends were having some people over in the city, and there was like a small group of us, and in like end of May or June or something like that. So as things kind of cleared up, but no, I have not been down there, so I don't know what the fuck's going on.
Yeah, the last I heard was at the One Philly event, and I cornered Joe Marsh, and I know he's like the CEO of T1 now, but he still knows what's going on. And I said, listen, Joe, tell me what's going on. And he's like, oh, we had to get the clearance to dig up the ground because the stadium's right there. There's some underground stuff that we have to make sure that we don't hit, which made sense to me at the time.
That makes sense.
But at the same time, I'm like, okay, but like if we don't see any movement within like 2 months, something's happening here, And this was a big thing, like they had an entire event focused around this arena, and it seems like such a cool arena. I'm really, really hoping they let me see it before it opens. Like, I want to go in and see it and write an entire thing about it and like have this whole feature article about here's what you can expect and all this other stuff. And I actually had asked.
Bring me with you.
I had actually asked Fusion PR to work with them on a piece leading up to the finishing of it. It's supposed to finish in January.
Yeah,
they're supposed to be ready for the next season.
Yeah, that's not happening.
I don't think it's gonna happen, and I haven't asked anything. I probably should, but the thing is, the last time I asked about it was probably maybe mid-May. I had asked Kelsey, I was like, listen, I really want to do this great piece on how you're building it, how it comes along. I want to talk to the people who are in charge of building it. And she was just like, yeah, she basically dismissed it. I forget how she dismissed it because I had asked about something else at the same time. And so I'm thinking, so from that interaction, I'm like, okay. So I'll have to remember the next time I drive over there. I mean, I'm not going anywhere right now, but
right. I don't know why I'd be in that area. I mean, the only reason I'd be in the city is because I'm going to a friend's place. Like, that's it. I mean, like Philly, as of we're recording this August 10th, is still like pretty locked down. The suburbs aren't though.
Yeah, all of New Jersey is such a terrible mess.
Yeah,
and it has been from the beginning.
I mean, half of us are going to the shore, so. We're responsible.
That's literally what I'm doing for my vacation. My grandmother has an empty shore house, and that's where we're going, and that's it.
Yeah, ironically, I got my passport renewed. I went to go get it renewed in February, and I got it in May, so like 2 months late. But I got it.
What a salt in the wound.
Yeah, because I wanted to travel, and I haven't like had that travel bug, but like recently I was like, okay, like I want to like go do some like international stuff, and like some of my friends are doing some international travel, and I didn't have my passport, and I wasn't like financially like ready to do it, but now I'm like, okay, and then now I'm trying to move out, so I want to travel, and like an Overwatch League would have been a great like. Either to cons or something like that. I would love to like get out to Seattle, like do a vacation, and then do PAX West or whatever.
That's what we were talking about doing. We were talking about doing PAX West.
Yeah, well,
we were gonna do it next year, but not yet. I don't even know if East is gonna happen. That's in March.
See. Yeah, we'll see. I don't think I wouldn't cross it off just yet.
I don't know.
But at the same time, somebody was probably like, "Yo, no, cross that shit off the list. That's not
Yeah.
happening." Yeah, because that happened like what the week before all this.
I know when it happened because the anniversary of dating was on March 20th, and I think that weekend is when our governor shut everything down. So it was that weekend.
I wonder if any cases came out of it. You didn't hear about it, so I feel like nothing did. If
you know, it's funny because that interview I had with Christopher, I shook his hand, and I thought after that, like, I really shouldn't have done that. I should have just done like the elbow thing or something, because at that point,
yeah,
that was like early March. So at that point, like, we knew that it was happening. Like, we knew it was a thing.
Right, and even at the Brotherly Love event, like that.
Right.
China, the Asian teams had stopped playing, or they weren't doing travel there. Like, it's kind of funny. Like, we knew about it, but like, we were like,
it wasn't here yet.
Right.
It wasn't in the U.S.
It was such a different game.
Right. So in early March, like, California had just gotten its first case. So like, that's why I was like, oh yeah, shake my hand. But like, people weren't doing that. You know, they were kind of doing the elbow thing right around that time. Because I remember I saw Atlanta's content creator, his name's Dan. I saw him and I was like, I would hug you if this wasn't like a thing. And he's like, yeah, don't touch me.
Yeah, everyone was like, yeah, leave me. Yeah, even still, people are kind of weird about it. I'm not as like, you know, I'm not gonna go up and hug random strangers, but I'm not as I went out to eat recently. I'm kind of like, all right, I just want to go back to work.
I'm not doing that here. New Jersey has always been really, really bad, so I'm just staying home, man. I go into Target and BJ's and like, that's it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to the gym and like, that's kind of it. Like I've been seeing some apartments, but like other than that, it's not doing too much. Like going to people's houses occasionally, but not huge groups. I started playing D&D the other week.
Oh really?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so that's been fun. But anyway, back to in closing, sorta.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get there. So yeah, you obviously, like, you love what you're doing. It's very clear from this conversation that this is what you want to do.
I definitely miss it. I miss it a whole lot. I miss the interview aspect the most. I mean, you know, coming from a place where my first interaction with like players and like getting to interview them was grand finals. And now, like, being able to do it, so I've done it, like, 3 or 4 times in person at the events. Like, I feel...
This year was going to be the year you'd get that experience,
right.
And you were robbed
of it. Yeah, and it's like, you know, I feel seasoned at this point. Like, I feel comfortable. I'm nervous before every interview. It's never going to go away. But, like, I love that feeling. And, like, my happiest times, like, you look back on my pictures of, like, the days where I went, like, my happiest times was when I was on my way to an event. Yeah. And it was tiring, but I loved it.
Right.
So that's why I keep at it. But it's like, it was tough there for the first couple months.
And I think you mentioned it, and we talked about it a little beforehand, but like, you were going to do an esports class at Rowan.
Right.
That fell through too, and that sucks, because like, when you told me that, I was like, that's awesome. Like, that is so cool.
They were going to pay me a hot bit of money too. Like, I was ready for it. You know, it was like a $3,500 stipend per class I taught. So it's like, it was an online class that was supposed to be like 4 weeks long. So it's like, after a month, I got paid like $3,500 for a class I've already developed. So I was going to be paid about $3,500 to develop the class, and then $3,500 to teach it. Mm-hmm. And I was like, all for that, because I'm like, yeah, it's going to be a lot of work, but I love what I do, and I love telling people about it, and I would love to teach people how to do it. But I think with everything that happened, I think they got overloaded trying to get the majority of their courses online.
Right.
And ours were supposed to be online, so like their priority went to
everything
existing
else.
Courses,
right.
As opposed to new courses.
Right.
So maybe next year, I don't know.
I really hope. I would love to hear what you have to say about that, and I would love to like do another podcast when we can talk about that, because that is fucking very interesting. Because again, it's just like, it's a totally new area that like nobody knows that much about, and video games journalism is a thing, but you're in I guess I would say niche part of video game journalism, which is esports.
Yeah, even video game journalism is already niche as it is. So it's like, you get into that portion of esports, and it's like, so you've got people that play video games in your little like, Venn diagram. You've got like the people that play video games and the people that watch esports, and like that overlap is about this big. It's really tiny. So it's like, people that watch esports don't always play the game. So like you've got that balance of like, do I write for people that play the game or do I write for people that watch the game? And it's always a little difficult to figure out how to grip that audience. And that's a question I get asked a lot, is like, well, how do you bring in that audience? It's like, well, you write about interesting things. So as an esports journalist, you won't find an esports journalist that is not a fan of an esport. So you think to yourself, like, what do I want to know? So when I ask my questions to Alarm, I'm a little bit more limited in a text interview, because when I have an in-person interview, they can let loose in front of me and say what they're thinking at that exact moment in time, and then I can get cool answers that people really want to know the answer to. And with the text interview, it's more like, well, I have to behave because I know PR is watching, and you don't want to burn that bridge with the team.
Right.
So you just do, the questions that are expected of you and try to find some kind of angle. So for me, it was like, it kind of sucked for me because I got his answers the day he was nominated as MVP for Alarm. So like I didn't get to ask those questions because I had given her the questions like on Monday, and she got them back to me on Friday. So it's like, for me to go, and he needs a translator, so for me to go ask another question, she was like, well, I can't get it to you because his tutor isn't back until Monday. So I couldn't get the answers because I shot her back an email real quick and she was answering me quickly, but like we couldn't get that answer just because he doesn't speak enough English for somebody to translate it to get it back to me. So that's another thing that I run into a lot.
I was gonna say that's another huge roadblock with all of this is language.
Right. So interviewing an Asian player is difficult because whether they're a Chinese player or a Korean player, you need a translator, and lost in translation is such a thing. For example, I interviewed Architect before Grand Finals, and I said, are you nervous? This is your first Grand Finals. Are you nervous? And so Krusty was his translator at the time. The way he translated to me is that I guess over in Korea, they, instead of lunch, they say picnic. Like they have a picnic.
Okay.
And so I had to kind of figure out what that meant. Because he was like, I'm waiting. It's like, this is all anticipation and I'm waiting for the picnic. It's like, a day at school where you go through school and you're waiting for lunch. But he said it right. So you have to figure out what they're trying to say. And like I had another one. Who did I interview? Bumper, the worst interview I ever had.
Yeah, you've told me about this.
Yeah, the worst interview I ever had. He's like, I asked him how a cheesesteak was, and he didn't know what it was. They had to describe it to him. So he had one, but he just didn't know what it was called.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't know what they described it as, but the person who was translating knew what it was. But yeah, it's a big roadblock, and it's tough because some of the most awesome players have they have that language barrier.
Right.
It's difficult for them to get through.
I think Carpe is kind of like that too, right? Yeah, like his language barrier.
He's got. I don't think he needs a translator anymore.
Really?
I think towards the end of the in-person events, he could actually do an interview on his own in English.
Maybe I just haven't seen it then. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because before I always felt like not he was struggling, but he still needed somebody.
Yeah, because I'm actually going to be submitting some questions for Carpe very soon. I should have actually had them in today. Whoops. But so I don't think Kelsey didn't say anything about a translator to me. They're all learning English. They have English tutors.
Oh, yeah.
Most of the team.
I'm sure.
But I don't know. I don't know if he does or not. He speaks pretty good English. When he was being asked questions, he would answer in English.
Good for him. That must be really.
It's gotta be hard, man. Yeah.
I mean, I know they still play. It's not like their game is in English, so it doesn't make a difference.
Right.
But yeah, man, like you're in an English-dominated, I guess, industry. Is that? Yeah, I guess that's true. English is probably the.
Yeah, I mean, you're not in Korea anymore. Where like if it were League of Legends, it would be the opposite. You'd have English players learning Korean.
Yeah.
But this is Overwatch League, where it started in the States, and so now you have your Western players who speak Spanish, French, Dutch, all sorts of languages, and have to learn. A lot of them did learn English, but those Asian-speaking countries, they didn't. Their second language was never English. It was probably something else. So, and then you have us here in America who
Yeah.
don't care about a second language.
Right. I'm sure. I know since just Poco's France, I'm sure he knew some English coming
did.
in. I mean, he can
Yeah.
speak English pretty well. It's just his accent's pretty thick, and it's it's just
he mumbles through it too.
Yeah, sometimes it's just hard to understand it. But yeah, he speaks
I
English pretty well. So
I never asked to interview Poco because I just can't understand what he's saying.
oh,
He's such an interesting player, but he's
he
only
is.
interesting when he's not being forced to sit down and interview. He wants to do his own thing, which is
yeah, he is a goofy dude. I've watched his streams. Like he's definitely like a quirky kind of guy, for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, Jess, thank you so much for sitting down and talking with me. It was very interesting.
Of course.
I got to learn.
I love talking about my job.
Yeah, I was gonna say I got to learn a little bit more about what you do, even though it's you're a journalist, you're a writer, but like, what does that really mean? I think I get it a little bit more because I like all that stuff with the interviews. I don't know, just never really thought about it.
There's always got to be a hook. That's what I gotta think about every time I go in. There's always got to be that hook.
So where can people find what you're doing? Where can they follow you? What you're writing? Lay it all out.
Oh God,
Plug.
I don't even know my own Twitter. Is that bad?
Well, your Twitter.
I know
is
it's
on
my
screen.
name.
Your Twitter is on screen.
Oh, okay. It's my full name. Because I had
It
it
is your
as
full
just my shorter name at first, but then I was like, let me fill out the whole thing. So my Twitter is at Jessica Scharnagle. The last name is spelled Scharnagle. You can thank my husband for that. I had an easier name before I was married, and now it's a hard name. And that's pretty much the only place you're gonna find me at. I don't really stream anymore. I'm not active on like Facebook as far as professionalism goes. So.
And then you're only writing for win.gg.
I write for Win. I also every now and then I write for the Game House too, but I haven't been writing for them because I write for the ones that pay me first.
There you go.
Especially in the pandemic, I really need it. So I told TGH, once my income balances out, I'll start writing for them again.
Yeah.
But you'll find me there too. I write about the Fusion over there. But my co-writer for the Fusion, he writes for them all the time, and he's really great. And his name's what's his name? It just escaped me. I just had it in my head and it escaped me. He's really awesome. And he does a lot of good stuff.
So you can find me at _thegooch, and you can find the Delco Nerd Network at Delco Nerds on Twitter and Instagram. Wow. I forgot what I was gonna say, but thank you for watching.
It's easy.
I was like going somewhere and I totally forgot about it. Thank you for watching. If you're watching live on twitch.tv/Delco Nerd Network, you can find this podcast on youtube.com/Delco Nerd Network, as well as podcast services like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get them. We're probably on them. Just search Delco Nerd Network and you should find us. All this information I said can be found on our website, www.delconerdnetwork.com. Jess, thank you again for coming on. I appreciate it.
Of course.
And until next time, guys, stay nerdy.